Good day, fellow rockers and moshers. Welcome to the Metal Connection, the connection to all things metal. I'm J-Dub, and today on the show we're doing a really cool Killswitch Engage album ranking, and we got some guests here on the show, so we'll probably just go around, get all the guests to introduce themselves, and then we'll kickstart it away with our with each individual's album ranking and see how everything shakes out, and whatever kind of discussion happens. For viewers at home, if you want to go ahead and get your Killswitch album ranking in order and see how it stacks up and matches against ours. So here we go. We'll get some introductions here. So Clint, if you want to go ahead and first and introduce yourself.
I am Clint. Hello, everybody. It's good to see y'all again. Let's enjoy this.
And then Matt, if you want to go up next and introduce yourself.
How's it going? I'm Matt the Viking, rocking out, ready to talk some Killswitch.
And then Terry, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Terry,
Big Killswitch and big Killswitch fan. Oh, actually, all of you are big Killswitch fans here, so that's why we got you on the show. So we're gonna hash it all out here, and so I guess Clint, you will be up first with your least favorite Killswitch.
All right, if I had to go with my least favorite, I would have to say with the second self-title, the last album with Howard.
Well, that's no surprise for me. That's, I'm not going to give my order up yet, but that's kind of no surprise for me. And, in general, do you like this album or do you have anything good to say about it or?
Like, I would have to say it ain't a terrible album. It is a good goodbye to Howard. Howard got to say his goodbyes on that album. If you pay attention to the lyrics, he knew he was leaving. He knew what was going on. At the time, I never related with that album too much, but I get it now. I understand it a little better now. You'll learn more about what I'm going to be saying, here in a little bit. But it's overall a pretty good metalcore album. It's a little more, mellow, a little more slow paced. But, lyrically, it's a great album. But you could just tell Howard was tired. You could tell the rest of the band just felt kind of like this is, musically, it didn't even seem like they were all clicking. It was like they all just wanted to get it out and put it out there. They didn't feel like, in Killswitch kind of terms, the fire wasn't there. It was, it seemed like it was, what's a good way of putting it? It just seemed like it was, times of, saying goodbye. It just, musically, it wasn't all there. It seemed like it just kind of was an album they put out for Howard to say his goodbyes and, to start his new beginnings and his farewells. All right, that's what I have to say about it.
Well, that's actually one thing I don't know actually off the top of my head, or specifically if they knew that it was going to be the end or their last album with Howard. I actually don't know if they knew that going in. But that sure is interesting. I'm sure some of the diehards would know those kind of specifics. I never came across any interviews where like they knew that it was going to be the last album. I think it kind of just, that's how it worked out. I'm not too sure. But we will continue on here with Matt. Your next, your least favorite, I would suppose we're calling this at this point with the first round.
Yeah, sounds good, Jamie. It's difficult to pick a least favorite Killswitch album. They're one of the bands I've seen live the most number of times, so I've got a really strong association with seeing them in concert. And when you do an album ranking, it's tough to start off with your least favorite because you feel negative, but at the same time, we want to put these in ascending order. So I'm going to firmly go with Clint on this one. That is also my least favorite album. I think Clint summed it up really well. It was one of those albums where when I listened to it, I thought, "Oh, this sounds a little tired. I wonder if they're winding down. I wonder where they're at in their sort of their cycle as a band." And I enjoy Killswitch's music, but this album didn't grab me, which was unusual. So that's my feelings.
Yeah, I'm pretty well in agreement with all of you guys. Well, so far, but yeah, I'll say what I have to say for my pick. But it does kind of, at that point, they were starting to get a little formulaic. They kind of hit a stride with Howard where it's aggressive, soft, and then it kind of started getting a little more, definitely much more softer and melodic, and they were definitely kind of in that formulaic realm, kind of a little too formulaic, basically.
I think that's fair.
And Terry, we'll go ahead with your next pick, and we'll see if it's the same as everyone else's up to this point.
I hate to be a follower, but I have to agree. Mine was the same pick. As soon as Clint said it first, I was like, oh, well, there goes mine. There's a few good songs on there, but yeah, like he said, it was just, I would say it kind of felt forced almost, like they were just putting out material just to put out material.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, basically, I kind of maybe touch on what I was saying with, at that point, they knew the formula, they knew how to, whatever, at that point, there was a lot of female fans, so they were trying to probably get in touch with the females and things like that, and giving Killswitch a bad name, even though, I will just probably lead us into my pick, essentially. So, yeah, obviously my pick will be the last, the self-titled here, the last album with Howard. And again, actually, I did find when I did have to revisit it for this ranking, I knew it was kind of going last, but actually, it wasn't as bad as I remember. It's probably one of those things I probably should kind of listen to more often. Again, we got the opening track, Never Again, does start out strong, and you are thinking, okay, this is a good sign of things to come, but then the kind of formulaic, kind of whiny Howard started coming in a little bit, and it started getting a little too formulaic. But I did have some decent songs off that track. The Reckoning was good, and then actually near the middle half, there's a couple of slow songs where I actually do really like. They Light in a Darkened World. It's like a nice kind of slow, catchy tune, and then I believe it's the next song right after, or the song after that, anyway. But there was I Would Do Anything, and that's kind of a nice slow build up kind of tune, and then the rest of the album really didn't do much for me that I have too many good things to say. Again, for me, I don't want to use the word whiny, but he was starting to get into his whiny, depressive mode, and that's it really comes across in all the choruses that he was doing. Just very slow, kind of melodic choruses that aren't super catchy. They're more of like a downer chorus, as opposed to some of the Jesse choruses later on that we're going to touch on. His choruses are upbeat and uplifting, and Howard's were kind of not going in that direction. And yeah, and I guess we'll continue on, Clint, with your next pick.
My next pick, I would have to probably go with, the original OG self-title. The original OG self-titled, the very first album, because that is the album I've listened to. That's the album I've listened to the least. I've only listened to the album like one time all the way through, and that was when I first got it. But I need to go back and listen to it because my favorite style of music is melodic death metal, and that album really was heavily influenced by melodic death metal. And there was no cleans, on that album, really, besides I think one song, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong, but it seemed like that was a very heavier album for them. But I need to go back and listen to it. Since I just can't recall, remember it in particular, that's why I'm putting it right there. It's going to be short and sweet. That's all I got on that album.
Oh, for sure. And me specifically, I didn't actually really choose to include that in my ranking here right now, just because a lot of those songs appeared on the Alive or Just Breathing. So I'm kind of just lumping those two albums together in a sense that a lot of those songs on that self-titled ended up on Alive or Just Breathing, and I didn't want to basically just rank. Again, a lot of those songs did appear twice, so I just didn't want to rank it twice. Obviously they did revisit and they re-recorded those songs and spiffed them up to their liking on Alive or Just Breathing. But in general, for me, I didn't really rank that. I didn't really include that in this ranking. And I did figure it would appear in someone else's list, but at that point, I kind of was just letting people do their own thing. If they want to include it, they want to include it. Obviously, it is technically their first album. Again, if you do look at the track list, basically that whole album appeared on Alive or Just Breathing a couple years later. So I didn't include that personally, but that obviously is a starting point that people are going to have to be aware of in general. But I don't know if anyone else included that. I was going to actually talk about it in the pre-chat. We kind of forgot, but looks like Matt did include that. So we might as well just kind of take that away into Matt's next pick.
Yeah, tip my hand there. I'm with Clint. I included this one as my second to least favorite, although it's in a lot of ways, Jamie, it's a lot of demos kind of sound. It has like a demo sound. It has we're just coming out of the gate sound to it. And they did a remastered version, like they did they released in 2004, or I don't know if it came out in 2004, but a lot of the recordings were from 2004, which cleaned up the sound a little bit, and had some special tracks included. But again, I'm with Clint. I didn't listen to it a lot, which is interesting because I can kind of differentiate my personal Killswitch preferences by Jesse versus Howard. I really enjoy Jesse Leach's energy, and yet this first album I haven't listened to it very much, but maybe that is because some of the tracks are repeated, and I came into Killswitch after this album. So
well, yeah, basically you're saying those kind of feel like demos, and yeah, at that point they would have probably toured on those songs and really refined them and really jazzed them up for the official major label debut, so to speak. So that's obviously an album that's going to come up later. So maybe we've probably touched on that enough. People have said what they want to say about that one, unless Terry needs to chime in specifically about that. But anyway, it is his next pick. So if he doesn't need to chime in, he'll go ahead and make his next pick.
I actually didn't even. I really honestly didn't even think about that one.
Yeah.
I mean, I did, but it was kind of like an afterthought. Because, like, it is. I agree. It's kind of a lot of demos and songs that they refined and kind of re-recorded later.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. So yeah, if I would have put that on the list, I guess I would have. Basically, the first two, they would be like neck and neck. Between that album and the later self-titled. But I guess for my next pick, I would pick. I had Incarnate originally, but then I ended up bumping that up. So I'm gonna go with Atonement. I don't really have a whole lot to say about it. I've listened to the album. There's some good songs. It's hard, like you said, to rank a Killswitch like from least favorite to most favorite, because a lot of them. I mean, I like pretty much all. I like all Killswitch, but this one is definitely not. It's not my favorite.
Do you think it is maybe one of those things, just because it is newer, maybe you haven't had a whole lot of time with it, or?
I mean, I listened to it. I actually seen them just, it wasn't too long before COVID I seen them. And they were still playing a lot of this material. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I've had years and years of other albums, and you hold songs like so dearly for like 20 years or however long it's been. Yeah, it's kind of, maybe it's just because the album's just so fresh to me. Maybe in 10 years I'll be like, my ranking completely changed.
Right. Yeah, that's totally fair. If the songs haven't super caught on or connected with you yet, then that's totally fair. And then I think, again, at this point, we're starting to get into pretty well a phase where every album is good, and we are going to have to crunch it down and eventually make these picks. So it is starting to get a little hard. I know for me personally, already every pick from now on here on out is hard.
Yep.
But for the sake of the video and the sake of doing this, I've had to narrow it down to something. So I will probably just go ahead with my next pick here, and I got As Daylight Dies, a very commendable album. This would be Howard's second album, and by no means do I think this is bad. It's a great album. 2006. Some kind of tracks that I wrote down that kind of stuck out for me was the opening track, Daylight Dies. We got some great galloping riffs in there. And then the next song there, This Is Absolution. That was a great kind of a melodic headbanger. And then Unbroken. Unbroken is actually a brilliant song. I don't know if anyone remembers that song specifically, but Unbroken, yeah, there's some brilliant build-ups in there and some choruses there. That's a great tune. And then obviously My Curse was a huge hit for the band. I believe there was a music video. Yeah, it was a huge, massive hit for the band. And then I also wrote down For You. Has a cool little off-tempo kind of riffing going on there. And actually, Howard sounds great on that song, For You. And then that's basically all the front half of the album. That's basically just all the front 4 or 5 songs right there, I've said. And the back half of that album really didn't do much for me. That back half is starting to lean into that more of depressy, whiny kind of choruses. Again, I don't want to say that and make it sound bad. I just mean, if you're listening to music, you maybe don't want to go down that route in a super melodic kind of whiny, depressy type mood. Again, that may reach certain people. Certain people may love those specific songs, the back half of As Daylight Dies. But I know for me personally, the back half of Daylight Dies didn't really do much for me, and that's why it's made its way to my second least favorite, because none of the albums kind of do that for me, where the back half just completely tails right off. I don't know if anyone wants to chime in, but then again, you obviously will have to make your pick, so we'll chime in at that point. And cool, I guess we'll go next with Clint's next pick.
This one might get some criticized. I'm not ready for this. I'm going to probably get a lot of criticized for this one. I've not listened to this album all that much either. I'm going to have to go with The End of Heartache. Wow. A lot of people I know are going to be disappointed in me on this. This is when I seen Killswitch back at Ozfest, with Rob Zombie when we talked about it. It was Rob Zombie, Mastodon. I just, that's the only time I've seen Killswitch. It makes me sad because Killswitch is one of my favorite bands, period. Hence to why I have a Killswitch tattoo. Get a better view of it,
We got that on there.
It's one of those bands that have gotten me through a lot of things. But when that album came out, I was starting to get into like the Swedish death metal sound, and that when I saw them at that tour, like, coming off of like, right before they played was Soilwork, and Soilwork just blew them out of the water, that in that show. And then after them was Arch Enemy and Mastodon and stuff like that. I was like, man. And then like As I Lay Dying, you know, at that time, you know, too, was at that show. It just, and like I've watched interviews, they weren't particularly happy with the Ozfest tour. They've talked about it, you know, on interviews. They were tired, they were worn out, you know, they were complaining it was hot, you know, and they didn't like how the scheduling was because they didn't know how because every day was different. You know, the opening bands at like 6 in the morning, you know, they'd have to start prepping at like 6 in the morning. Some days they could be later on the second stage. It was just, they said it was a big mess. And just their performance wasn't that good. You know, like I talked about, you know, Zombie wasn't that good at that show. It makes me sad because I was wanting to go see Slipknot, Killswitch a couple weeks back with Slipknot because I've been waiting to see Jesse live. Like, you'll hear me later. I am Google for Jesse. He's got, you know, but yeah, I need to go back and listen to that album a little more. I do like, this is one of those bands that really pioneered me into getting into music myself. And a lot of people compare my like high screams to Howard, my mid ranges to Jesse. So, you know, I'm kind of like a mix of the two, you could say, with my vocals, is what a lot of people tell me with my old band. You know, Killswitch was definitely one of the influences of it. But, you know, I just need to go back and listen to the album because I just haven't really listened to it all that much. I mainly listen to Jesse's stuff. But yeah, it's not a bad album. It's just I haven't listened to it as much as like everybody else that's like a Killswitch fan and purist. That's like the gold mine, you know, the most people. All
Right.
right.
It does sound like you are aware that it was a huge album for them, like in terms of sales and bringing in new fans. That was a huge, massive album for them, right? Like you probably are aware of that, but
Yes. Yes.
but then maybe again you were getting into some harder stuff, so maybe the softer songs of the album turned you away. Yeah. Right. Cool. So we'll go with Matt's next pick.
Well, yeah, I'm actually again in 3 in a row here. I'm with Clint on this one as well. I knew the End of Heartache was a huge success. It was a big album. It was the first tour of theirs I think I saw them on. And it's very strongly Howard's voice. Sort of his explosion in the band. And I think Rose of Sharon, they still play in every set. I'm pretty sure I've seen them play that song again and again. And yeah, I'm not saying it's a terrible album. I mean, we're talking about one of our very, very favorite bands here. And I think this is an excellent album. There were just later albums that spoke to me more. And I think Killswitch is really, really great at hitting the highlight track, the track where you're just, oh my god, I'll listen to this song 50 times. And for me personally, End of Heartache, although it's a good album, doesn't have that highlight track. It doesn't have the track where I'm just hitting repeat. You know, I listen to the song, I'm like, oh, that I'm just gonna hit that again, and I do that 20 times. You know, so this album I think is better as a whole composition, and it was great. I mean, enormous for them. You're right, Jamie. It was J-Dub. It was huge. But again, I'm with Clint on this one.
Yeah, that's totally fair. You know, everyone's going to have their own opinions, and you know, to have it second or third least favorite, by no means a bad thing. I don't think so. You know, we're still on track with some good albums, I believe. But we'll go ahead with Terry's next pick.
Yeah, mine was. I mean, we're getting, like you said, to where it's getting a little harder. I guess I would go with Disarm the Descent.
Okay.
I was actually really excited for it when it came out because the return of Jesse. But I honestly, the first single, I cannot remember it off the top of my head, but the first single, it just kind of I don't know, it just kind of turned me off of the album at the time. But then I did end up just shortly after its release, giving it a chance of listening to it, and I obviously fell in love with it. I think maybe just when it first came out, the first single just didn't hit me right away, and I was kind of into some heavier stuff at that exact moment, so I put Disarm the Descent at this spot for me.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, yeah,
Terry,
go
I
ahead.
think I think that first single was "The Hell in Me," which is the leading song on the track. I could be wrong.
No,
No, I believe it was No End in Sight.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Was it? I thought it was New Awakening.
We all got different. It was the first single. We all got different ones. I think it was No End in Sight, and it originally, I think it came out as This Is Confrontation or something like that. But then actually on the album it came out as No End in Sight, I think. But yeah, that's obviously going to be your pick, and I don't want to say too much. I don't want to chime in too much specifically because I'll have to make my pick, and then we'll probably hear the more specifics about that. I guess at this point, a lot of people aren't chiming in because we haven't said that, we haven't done that album yet, and that album hasn't came up for anyone else yet. So we'll probably just get to that when we get to that. And this will be my next pick. This was really difficult. Again, at this point, we're getting to the last. We're still last 4 or 5 away, but even now, this was still difficult. I would have loved to have gotten this higher, but my next one is going to be Atonement. By no means is this a bad album. This is a great album. It's long. There's basically no throwaway tracks. They're all great. But it is one of those things where every album that I'm going to choose hereafter is just superb. There's no denying the other albums. So unfortunately, I did have to pick this. It is not a case for me. It's not a case of it's so new I didn't have a lot of time with it. No, I had a ton of time with it. I've listened to, I think on I ripped these to my computer on my iTunes, and my iTunes count on this album is pretty well 40 times, 30 to 50 times, depending on the song. So I've had a lot of time with this album. So by no means is this low for a specific reason. It's just we're getting down to the nitty gritty here, and I love Killswitch. I love all these albums, so this had to have gone there. I did write down some tracks that really kind of stuck out for me. Obviously, we had that Signal Fire with Howard, and that was kind of a cool thing for fans to know that Howard can do a song with Killswitch and there's no bad blood going on between them. So that is a really cool thing for fans to know that, hey, there's no bad blood going on here. They're all friends still. They all like each other. So that's a really cool moment for Killswitch Engage fans. And then I had Crownless King there with Billy from Testament. Billy gets to shine a little bit there, and they kind of write a heavy thrasher tune for him. So that was a cool one. And then we got As Sure as the Sun Will Rise. I like the kind of the chorus on there. We got that healer, seeker, true believer. Wicked little chorus there. We got Adam D's doing some of his death metal screams there in the background over top that. So that was a cool one. And we got Know Your Enemy was kind of a high, nice high tempo song, good riffing. We got Jesse's doing his hardcore kind of screaming going on there. Great stuff. Take Control was a super catchy mid-tempo plodding kind of melodic tune. Ravenous. I love the backup screens on Ravenous. Adam D's back there doing his death metal-esque screams over top of that. And the closing track, Bite the Hand That Feeds. Great heavy kind of thrasher. Jesse's super aggressive on his vocals on that one. And then that is kind of carrying the kind of tune that Killswitch Engage does with always having a great album closer. They're one of those bands, they always have a great album closer. So this is one of those albums where they had a great album closer, much like every album pretty much. And I know for Atonement, I actually probably like the back half a little bit better after we get through those the Howard Feature song and the Billy Testament song. And I do probably like the back half better. I think the back half's probably a little stronger, even though I think the whole album's strong in general. And yeah, we'll go next here with Clint's next pick.
I would have to go with my next one would be as Daylight Dies is my next one. You know, like this album, it came out at the right time. You know, I was starting to get really into metalcore at that time. And, you know, I was starting to progress, you know, into like, you know, like at that time, you know, I was like my friends got me into Asking Alexandria and more of the metalcore thing because that's what was popular. If you'd asked me before that album came out, Deicide, Cannibal Corpse, 6 Feet Under, Obituary, Death, you know, Soilwork, In Flames, death metal and melodic death metal, and Rob Zombie is all I listen to. You know, but this album came out at the right time. I was just kind of was like, wow, you can be heavy and you can sing. Holy shit. You know, I was like impressed. I was like, wow. You know, it really kind of like latched on and it kind of was like I was like really impressed and it kind of opened my eyes to like kind of like the idea I thought of when I was a kid, you know, when I was probably about, you know, like a lot of people were saying they created metalcore, you know, they created the 2000 sound metalcore. If it had a definition, that would be it. You know, like I thought it would have been cool before that album came out, you know, when I was a God, I'm 33, I'd have to be I might have been like, you know, I was pretty young when I thought of the idea like having like, you know, Cannibal Corpse kind of screams with like AFI clean vocals. I thought it was, like I thought it was like just emo shit. I was like, what the fuck? You know, who needs this? And that album just kind of really that and the Fall of Ideals by All That Remains. Those two albums kind of like transitioned me into like going, wow, you can really be heavy, but you can actually have like really decent clean vocals too. And not being like, you know, super whiny sounding. There is that whine, you know, like, you know, Jamie was saying in the back half of the album, yeah, I do hear it, but it ain't like, like those like Norma Jean kind of screams or anything like that. It ain't the like, and I listen to that stuff nowadays too. You know, I've really got a wide range of music I listen to now, but like this album kind of opened my eyes into like, kind of gave me the pathway of like, okay, there's more than just, you know, your nasty guttural nasty stuff. You know, you can actually have heavy stuff with heart. And it kind of opened my eyes on like how to write like lyrically too, because at that time, you know, I just, you know, all through middle school and high school, I was in the like slam and death, and like that's the kind of music I made too. I was in several death metal bands and a black metal band and one thrash band, and you know, it just was like. But that album kind of really made me kind of want to express myself more, branch out and be myself, and kind of gave me the footsteps of becoming who I am today. Thank you.
It's definitely more melodic, and it definitely, you know, can opens people's eyes to that you can still be catchy and heavy and all those kind of things all in one, which Killswitch is a complete master at doing. Throughout all their albums, they're complete masters at doing these aggressive, super intense riffs, and then it'll completely switch to a melodic chorus where it's catchy as well, and then it'll build back up into these heavy thrashers, you know, hardcore riffs and sort of things like that. So these guys are absolute masters at touching on that specifically for sure.
I actually should have mentioned this when it was my pick, but that album in particular, the guitar work is phenomenal. Like, if you listen to just the guitars, that is one of their best albums as far as guitar work.
Yeah, I know for me, probably if I had to pick one standout track, it would probably be that Unbroken. maybe if people are watching or whatever, go back and listen to that. That is a brilliant song. The build-ups, the choruses, everything. That is a brilliant tune. And we'll go ahead here with Matt's next pick.
Okay, I'll be reasonably brief because Jamie, I thought you did a very thorough job, and Terry gave us some good perspective. My next pick is Atonement. Again, I think this is a great album, but I almost found myself checking out a little bit when I listened to it. I love the Signal Fire. I think that song with Howard is phenomenal. I like what it means. I like the collaboration and sort of what that means for fans. I think it's a great album. But I definitely, I was asleep at the wheel a little bit listening to it, and I re-listened to it, and I agree with you, Jamie. Bite the Hand, that the final track is awesome. So good album, but right in the middle of the pack for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think anyone's thinking at this point. I don't think anyone's thinking these are bad albums. So it's getting down to the nitty gritty, and all these albums are pretty spectacular in my eyes. So I'll go ahead and use spectacular while it came to me. So so we'll go ahead with Terry's next pick.
All right. So for me now, we're getting in albums for sure. These are my more favorite. I would go Incarnate first. It's just there's so many good songs on this album.
Oh yeah, there we go. Cool.
And for me, that album, it just felt like this, like Killswitch is like they're really back. Like, and I mean, it's just a really good album. I really don't have. I was trying to keep it a little more brief on Incarnate. If anybody wants to chime in.
I have it quite high in my ranking specifically. So I'll have to touch on that when I get to it and maybe give a reason why I think it's so high. But that's definitely a great. Well, obviously this would have been Jesse's second album back since he returned. So he's fully back in the swing of things. The band's fully confident. The band's fully happy with. Well, it seems like they're happy with everything that's going on. Where their career was headed. That was 2016. So we're going back 5 years now already. So it seems like they were happy with the way things were going, with the fact that they're still on the same lineup, and that was definitely a good sign of things to come in general for Killswitch Engage fans. And I'll probably just lead that into my next pick here. And this was hard, and out of kind of respect and even nostalgia and everything that this album did for the band and for future fans, I got this ahead of Atonement, even though because I played this to death when it came out. So my next pick is End of Heartache. And again, when this came out, I was a full-on Killswitch fan. I would have played this album to absolute death, where pretty well it was every day for months. So it's one of those things. I know I was younger back then. I was working a poor job where I'd work midnight shifts, and I would just put this on repeat on midnight shift. So this album was played to death for me. And again, that album is just there's no denying that album and what it did for the band. Obviously brought in just a whole different fan base. They had a ton of hit songs on that one. Some songs that I wrote down that stuck out for me here was When Darkness Falls. Rose of Sharon was a huge hit song for them. They had the music video for that one, so I'm sure everyone's kind of familiar with that one off the top of your head, Rose of Sharon. And again, even though we've all heard that song to death, or some of us have heard that song to death, that's a brilliant song. Like, that's a brilliant classic song for Killswitch Engage. Breathe Life, Howard's out there with his big pipes. It's kind of starts off with a kind of a thrashier, rager type thing, and it's an interesting open chorus that he's doing on that one. And Declaration, Actually, Declaration has like these really cool kind of really dark undertones going on that track. If anyone watching is like, oh, dark undertones, just check it out. You'll kind of see what I'm talking about on that one, Declaration. And then I believe this is another album closer. I seem to touch on a bunch of album closers on my little notes here. Is Hope Is, the last song, Hope Is. Again, they finish with these great album closers that always leave you with a good taste in your mouth. Good vocals on that one. And those are kind of my standout tracks on that album. But there's no denying that album, and that's why I had to get it as high as I could. Maybe it could have gone higher if we would go back to 2004 when it came out. Well, obviously there'd be no other albums to choose from, so for sure it would be higher, but that's kind of wasn't my point on that one. But I would have liked to get it higher, but maybe that is one of those things where I did play it to death and I don't play it as often anymore because I know the whole album off by heart. I could just put on any song and I know the words, or I know the choruses that are coming up. I know the build-ups. I know the riffs. I know everything about that album. So at that point, I don't really need to listen to it a whole lot. I kind of just need to maybe touch it up on and listen to it once in a while if I feel like it. But that album was played to death, and yeah, I don't know if anyone else played that album to death when it came out.
Definitely.
Yeah. And Clint, if you want to go ahead next with your next pick.
This one was a challenge. This one was a real challenge for me. And I thought it like, I really, even during this whole discussion, I thought I had it figured out. And hearing everybody talk, and the way my brain works and how I think about things, it changed in the middle of this video. It's crazy how things can, relate. I thought I was going to go one way and I went another direction. So I'm going to have to go with Atonement is my next one. I mean, to me personally, musically, that album is incredible. It does show, how much they have grown. And they did put on some really good bangers, especially, it's their first release with Metal Blade. They changed labels on that album. And, if you really do pay attention to it, there is some death metal influences on that album. And if you really pay attention, like the Metal Blade, they are really a death metal label. A lot of the bands are death metal. And you could hear that, death metal flair to that album. Plus, at the same time they were recording, that album, Adam was doing that album with George Corpse Grinder, shit, I can't think of the name now.
Serpentine Dominion?
Yeah, Serpentine Dominion. I actually had that album, and you could kind of see the flavors kind of blend. But on Serpentine Dominion, Jesse wrote the lyrics on it, which it's kind of weird hearing heartfelt, kind of lyrics, or kind of like, not as brutal kill lyrics coming out of Corpse Grinder. But like Jesse got comfortable with himself. He finally, on that album, to me personally, he 100% did what he is capable of. He put it beyond what I could recommend. Like he finally 100% got comfortable with his voice, his cleans, and his screams, and he brought it to the table. Like I've always heard people complain, oh, Jesse ain't as good as Howard. When this album dropped, Jesse was like, come on, bring it. I could already tell, like, in his tones in that, that album. He's like, bring it. I can do anything Howard can do. It's just that album lyrically is what made me change my mind. I don't relate to that album as much as my next one I'm going to be saying, you'll see. But overall, it's just a good, solid, heavy, and melodic, really good, balanced album. And it gives me hope. I'm ready to see what they bring in the future, I'm just hoping they kind of leave, and bring on, some heavy like that on the next album. Unlike, the latest by Times of Grace. I hope they leave that kind of sound for Times of Grace and keep the heaviness of Killswitch. So time will tell, but it's a bright future for Killswitch, with that album. And I'm just, I can't wait to see what the future brings.
That's definitely a commendable album. That is their newest album up to this date, so that's definitely a commendable album. And I would have liked to have gotten it higher in my list, but again, this list is only 7, 8 albums if you include the first one. So it's pretty hard to get these crunched down. So we are crunching her down here. So Matt, if you want to go ahead with your next pick.
Yeah. Thank you, J-Dub. When you're a fan of Killswitch, there is a dialogue between Howard and Jesse Leach, and I don't really agree with anyone who disparages either singer. I think they both had a unique sound, but I'm very much a fan of Jesse and how aggressive his vocals are. So this is where this is my last Howard album, which will tip the last few albums on my list, which is As Daylight Dies. This is just a spectacularly well-rounded album. And to be fair, it might actually have been lower, except that I think I've heard 9 of the 11 songs live in concert through their many shows. And every one of these songs has an association for me that is linked to a show I was at, or friends I was with, or a particularly great moment in a mosh pit. And I was just scanning the track list, and I mean, one after another, I could sing the chorus to each song. And I think that speaks highly for the album, even though I'm a Jesse Leach stan as well. So Daylight Dies, my pick.
Absolutely. I think that's appeared on everyone's list so far. I think everyone's made that pick. So I think we've all touched on it. So, I think we'll probably get to that here. So, Terry, if you want to go next with your next pick here.
That was actually my next pick, was That Daylight Dies.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I have it at the same exact spot. I already basically said what I had to say about it. The guitar work is amazing. I agree. At the time, when it came out, there's the songs. There's just so many memories attached to it. The album it's phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but yeah, it's made its way quite on high on your list. I believe we're into top 3, top 4. So that is obviously pretty high on your list for reasons over the other ones. So that obviously is what it is. And I guess we're in my next pick here. And yeah, we are in our last 3. So the next cycle around is the top 2. So this is the top 3. And then next round will be, Clint's next pick will be top 2. So these next 2, specifically for me, my next 2 picks, the next 2 rounds were extremely difficult. I was tossing and turning on my next 2 picks all afternoon. It wasn't even until the last couple hours where I was semi-confident with the order of these last 2. It's almost one of these things where the last 2 I could easily flip-flop on any given day. And so my next one is Disarm the Descent. Just an incredible album. This is Jesse's return. So Howard left the band had a break, and this was Jesse's big old return. And for me, my excitement was through the roof on this album. Just knowing that I was going to be getting my Jesse back, and the kind of depressy Howard thing is gone. I love Howard. I love all Howard's new side projects that he's done. So I love the fact that we get both bands now. We get his Light the Torch and Killswitch Engage. So I think everything worked out for the better. So anyone watching at home, fans, don't freak out or anything like that. That I'm saying that, depressy kind of thing that he was getting into. So this is my big return, happy moment for me particularly. I was super jazzed on this, and to hear that they were coming out hard with this album. I just absolutely love this album. I could flip flop this as my second favorite quite easily. You couldn't even you could easily convince me to put it second favorite, and it's like, okay, sure. So it is just a matter of my next two are just so damn good that it was really difficult hammering these two out specifically. And there is definitely a lot of kind of melodic death influences. Basically, a very well-rounded album. Jesse's back, doing his screams, death metal, melodic death vocals, his soft high vocals, great stuff. Some tracks that I kind of had touched on was obviously the opener, The Hell in Me. He's just come out blistering death metal kind of flares, obviously, and then there's some melodic choruses going on. And then The New Awakening. I kind of see that New Awakening song, track number 3, The New Awakening. I as soon as I was listening to that, I probably heard that 50, 60, 100 times or whatever since it's been out, and that is your quintessential Killswitch Engage track. That's got everything on that track. Yeah, the song has it all, like screaming riffs, catchy backup vocals, headbanging, anthemic chants are on that song. It's a really raise your fist type song. So that's New Awakening. I couldn't say more good things about that song in particularly. And then In Due Time was a lead out hit single for them, In Due Time here. And I got Tribute to the Fallen. Jesse does a great mix of influences on that. I don't even know great guitar work, and obviously Adam D with his incredible backup vocals, his screaming death metal type vocals and background. And then I do the Turning Point. Again, some more of those death influenced vocals. That's a heavy thrasher tune. No End in Sight. That's a complete monster of a track, I find. That's one of my favorite Killswitch Engage songs. That's near the back half there. No End in Sight, track number 10. That's one of my favorite Killswitch Engage songs ever. That's a complete monster of a track. And then Slave to the Machine. Again, here we are. I believe Slave to the Machine is the album closer. So again, with my trend, thinking that Killswitch has these amazing album closers that always leave you with a good taste in your mouth. And I rather than just kind of writing down every song, I kind of just picked a couple of their standout tracks. And I definitely have, if I were to focus on two specifically, it'd be The New Awakening and No End in Sight are both complete monster tracks.
Sweet.
And here we are with our, we'll all be making our next rounds with the top two. So Clint, if you want to go ahead with your top two here, or the top, your second here.
I guess it would be my top, 3 actually for me, because I brought in the original, self-title. So yeah, this one, like I said on the previous one, this one and the last one kind of swapped. This album, I'm gonna have to go with my brain's just kind of not wanting to work right now. It's the one with the swan and the snake.
Incarnate?
Yeah, Reincarnate. Yeah, I wanted to say Reincarnate, but that's Motionless in White. This album, it is a little more softer than what I wanted. It is it was a little more softer than what I really wanted in the album. But as I've listened to it more, that album, this is what I was talking about earlier. I just hope I didn't get the waterworks. I must hope that I wasn't gonna kind of tear up, because this album right here got me through a lot. Lyrically, Cut Me Loose, and Always. I had, especially lately, I had a cousin that committed suicide by hanging himself. And I wish, I would have known he was kind of, suicidal. I would have kind of, showed him Cut Me Loose, where maybe it could have saved him. And, just that song just, I've been in those moments, like I said, during the Rob Zombie video, I'm an open book. I don't give two fucks, you judge me or not. That album kind of got me through my mom's death too. It came out around I think it was a year after my mom died. My mom died of an overdose. And, and then I just kind of, it just kind of gave me the silent slumber of kind of like knowing, of peace that, of her passing. I didn't have to worry about her anymore, like her last several years, were kind of like she had the mind of a child. And then, here's the one that I'm hoping I don't break down right now. I'm kind of going through the same thing I went through with my mom, with my brother right now. And God damn, I said I wasn't going to. The song Always. That's supposed to be, the representations of brotherhood right there. Jesse wrote it, for his brother going through cancer. And that song, it just, when my brother was always going into like prison for drugs and getting into trouble, we always had each other's back no matter what. And the last couple of months, I haven't really talked about it that much with many people. I'm just hoping my brother don't see this video where he don't kill me, but he's going through a rough time right now with addiction. It's the worst he's ever been. Every day he's yelling at the sky. He's yelling at me. He is trying to beat me up. It's like, we're kind of stepping on glass. I stay, we both stay with our grandmother right now. I do. After I lost my house because of COVID, I lost my home. So she told me I could stay here, and help her out. I, take care of, and, like, but the song Always, I thought I would always have my brother. And I always thought we'd have each other's back. But this album, that song just particular, my brother don't have, sorry, y'all. Sorry. My brother don't have my back right now, and it's the first time, I've ever said that, like, he's just so crazy. He blames me and our family for everything, that he's going through right now. And I kind of went back and listened to that song, and like literally it brought me to tears. And I put it on repeat for like 4 hours yesterday. And it's just, it's sad, it's about, a brother going, battling cancer, but it relates the same way with the brother watching them kill themselves with addiction. And it's just, when you can't always be there for them, it just sucks just watching them change. And, hence why my old band was called Monsters Made Me. We all have monsters that created us. And, it's just, it's sad to see him become everything we feared as growing up, him becoming everything our mom was, but worse, and, it just kind of slumbered, that album just, it's getting me through right now too, particularly because I've had some negative thoughts in my head, but I got to push myself. Somebody's got to be there for my grandmother and take care of her. She is 86, or she will be 86 next month. Somebody's got to, take care of her, and, I help, with everything I can with her. And, it's just hard, for both of us going through what we're going through with my brother right now, because an 86-year-old woman shouldn't have to pick up a, meth addict off of the ground, whenever he's passed out and is on just filth, or, just feeling like she's getting interrogated because, he thinks people are following him, and making her feel like shit. like just that album right now is getting me through a whole lot of my life right now, and it's really, really a powerful album. Like at the time, I was disappointed it was more melodic, but right now that album is kind of what's kind of keeping me together right now. That and the next one I'll be mentioning, these next three albums, are a unity with me, and I carry really close to my soul and heart and mind and everything, and it's getting me through life. And if you know, yeah, thank you.
That's what it is.
Yeah, actually, and I just definitely wanted you to get your full bit in, and definitely touching on that Always song specifically. I know that obviously means a lot to Jesse, and I think a lot of fans can relate because that is a staple in their live set here recently, and ever since that album has came out. That is a complete staple that they do play live pretty well every show, every tour, yearly cycle that they do. They keep that in the set list. So I think that is one of those things where that is obviously a staple in their set list for a reason. I think a lot of fans can relate to that. I think Jesse, obviously, that means a lot to Jesse in the fact that he probably does push for it to be included in the set list. So it is great that you do mention that because I know a lot of fans can relate.
Definitely. I want to chime in there actually. I dealt with some similar things that you're going through, Clint, and I just want to tell you that I'm sorry that that's happening right now. My dad actually passed away about a year ago, and Always was actually one of his favorite songs. So I kind of feel you there. When I hear that song, it just makes me think of my dad. Um, so I just want to let you know, I feel for you.
Fist bump visual
Oh,
and metal we trust.
Yeah, that's definitely a good thing to bring up, and that song specifically. Yeah, I know I've seen them live a few times, and they played that live both times, so it's all for a reason. And we will go ahead with Matt's next pick.
Thanks, J-Dub. Yeah, it's hard to follow you. It's going to be hard to follow you guys because I think there's a lot of strength and openness. There's a lot of being willing to share those feelings is a sign of character and a real sign of strength. And I think it's a testament to the music we love that, both of you have suffered loss and the music's been there. And that the music's been relevant, that it's been helpful and that it's spoken to you directly. So my next pick is a tie for second. Clint and I had the original album in, which made our list a hair longer, but I'm happy to pony these two albums up, which is Incarnate and Disarm the Descent. If I had to put them in order, I think Incarnate is a brilliant album. Hate by Design is a phenomenal song, one of my favorite Killswitch songs. But Disarm the Descent is it's just a monster, and the return of Jesse was something to be excited about. I thought In Due Time is probably their catchiest song. I thought In the Hell in Me was super strong. I'm pretty sure Always and No End in Sight both show up on Disarm, I think. And it's just an awesome album. So for my strong second, Disarm the Descent and Incarnate tied. And thanks again for sharing, guys. I'm honored.
You're welcome, Matt. I mean, like I said, I'm an open book. Music's got me through a lot of my life, and it always has. No pun taken. It's one of those things that shows, that's one thing that I really do like about, Jamie, thank you for having me on this podcast. Thank you for inviting me. It shows, through music we have unity. It can show, maybe people that aren't metal fans, maybe we'll see these videos one day and be like, wow, maybe metal ain't all devil's music. It has layers. Or wait, maybe in Shrek's words, it's like an onion.
Oh, that's a great word you use. Killswitch does have so many layers. They are so dynamic in all aspects, from going completely aggressive, crazy, thrashing, hardcore to literally 1 second later, you're in this melodic, catchy chorus, and then back to the extreme. So these guys are just complete masters at doing this.
Yep.
And we'll go ahead with Terry's next pick.
I'm at two now, number two. I want to say that this was tough, but it actually wasn't that tough because when you first told me about doing this, I instantly thought of number one and number two. So for my, I guess, number two overall is going to be The End of Heartache. I know everybody touched on it earlier. I was conflicted when the album came out, and that's because of my number one album, I guess. This was Howard's first album with the band. It's an awesome album. Like I said, I was conflicted at the time, but yeah, I guess that's why this is number two. But I guess I just think out of the entire discography, this album just was the one that kind of put them over the top and made them almost a household name, I guess you could say. I know they had the video and the song on the Resident Evil movie soundtrack from I can't even think of it. The End of Heartache.
Yeah, I might have Resident Evil or something. I don't actually know.
Oh yeah, it was on. It was a Resident Evil movie soundtrack.
I thought I just made that up, but if I'm right, that's cool. I wasn't totally sure. Yeah, I know there was movie soundtrack. There were a lot of movie soundtracks. Killswitch, I think, was involved in a couple different back then. There was also like the MTV2 Headbangers Ball soundtrack or something like that. They had a song on that, and I think that was Howard's first song that they've recorded, and then they put it on the compilation. But anyway, that's kind of here nor there. But yeah, no, absolutely. Obviously, that End of Heartache for me or you, obviously, with it being so high in your list, there's no denying that album with its complete catchiness. Yeah, no denying how catchy that album is, and a huge staple for the band. It's pretty well just a classic. Again, I would just know that whole album top to bottom, every kind of time shift and change and beat change that's going on with that album. It's just a complete classic. And here we are with my next pick. And again, my last two I could have just tossed and turned, but I did kind of focus more in on Incarnate as being my second favorite, I guess we'd call it. And yeah, super heavy album, and I know I actually did write down specifically in my notes that this album is so heavy, and it does have a lot of death metal type influences. And I know you did bring up Serpentine Dominion earlier that they were working on. I'm not sure the specific timeline, but I believe Adam D wrote a lot of those songs around this era, around the 2016 with that Serpentine Dominion album. So I think there was a lot of kind of heavy material going on. I know Clint did specifically say that he thinks Incarnate's more of a softer melodic album. Again, we all hear things a bit differently. I specifically hear Incarnate as a complete monster of an album. Again, great influences of what Killswitch are masters of doing the up and down, where it's complete all out thrashing hardcore riffs and then couple seconds later, you're leading into a melodic, catchy chorus. So these guys are masters at this point of doing this. So yeah, Incarnate 2016, right off the opening track here, Alone I Stand, was just a total great things to come for the rest of the album. You know, great up-tempo tune, so you know what you're getting yourself into right off the lead-off track. And then Hate by Design, you know, we're opening up with these killer death vocals, awesome killer hardcore breakdowns in that song. Just a super fun time there, Hate by Design. And then I wrote down Strength of the Mind, killer thrashing riff going on here. Again, that's one of those tracks that can go out to this all-out crazy aggressive, and then one second later you're back to this cool, really softer chorus, and then obviously building back up, back and forth. Really great stuff. And then I wrote down Just Let Go. That's that is more of a melodic tune, but a fun melodic tune. Embrace the Journey. And Embrace the Journey, that's one of their longer songs. That's like a 5.5 minute song. So right off the bat, this kind of has this riff, and you know right away this is going to be a monster track, and it is a complete monster track. A 5-minute track. Killswitch Engage really nailed that. Brutal thrasher, mosh track as well. You know, get the moshing going. And this is actually one of my more favorite tracks. I don't know how or why specifically I ended up playing this track a ton, but Great Deceit is one of my favorite Killswitch Engage songs ever. Yeah, just super high in the play count. Came out great, thrashing riffs on that one. Ascension, just an amazing chorus on Ascension. Again, we get some more of those brutal death metal vocals and backups. You know, Adam D's always back there screaming with death metal vocals over top Jesse, and it's really cool when Jesse's doing his screams and Adam D's doing his screams, and then you just have this all-out assault. Again, not like death metal, but very death metal-esque. They're definitely wearing their influences on their sleeves with that old melodic death metal vocals, you know, At the Gates, Carcass, maybe, you know, Old Arch Enemy, Dark Tranquility, Old in Flames. So a lot of cool screaming stuff going on all throughout these kind of newer albums. That was Ascension there I kind of was talking about there. And actually, I didn't want to say this just because the drums don't get brought up too much, but I kind of was focusing on the drums on Ascension. Great pounding drums on their beast of a drummer. You know, he is Foley. I forget his name's slipping my mind here. Justin Foley, right? So Justin Foley really shines on that track Ascension. So anyone watching at home, check that track out. Check that track out after, and you'll see what I'm talking about with some really pounding drums and some just really beast on the drums on that track. And then I got Reignite here, a fast, upbeat tempo song. Again, more incredible drum work on Reignite. This song is just huge. And then again, I believe this is the album closer again. I seem to be really touching on these album closers that Killswitch is great for. And Triumph Through Tragedy, this is where I really thought they had that Serpentine Dominion influence with the death metal thing going on. This could have been probably a track that showed up with Corpse Grinder, but Triumph Through Tragedy, just pure death metal influence going on here. Corpse Grinder would be proud. Yeah, Serpentine Dominion, Corpse Grinder would be proud of that one. And rather than kind of just go, I pretty well did touch on most of the songs in the album. So again, this was my second favorite. I absolutely love this album and the album that came before. So these could have been toss-ups for me. I have nothing. I could just keep going on and on about good things to say about this album and how much I love it. So I'll finish it off with that. And Clint, I believe since you did include that first one, you're one pick behind everyone else. So I think you will go ahead and get your 2 picks, and then we'll be caught up here to make everyone's last pick.
Yeah, this one, like, I really can't, you know, separate. Actually, the funny thing, I was going to say that before, I can't separate these 2 albums. You know, Alive or Just Breathing and Disarm the Descent, they're equal. they are literally equal with me. You know, those two albums, you know, I just can't pick either one of them, you know, like literally before I got this Killswitch tattoo, the girl that's on this arm, I literally debated about getting that on my neck, you know, at one time. You know, I was gonna get, you know, the smoke coming down to my chin and have her, you know, down from here and going up on my neck. I thought about that. But, you know, at the time whenever that album came out, I was a little more slender at that time. And I've gained weight again since then. So we don't want it to look like the Marshmallow Puff Man, you know.
Well,
Or it could have looked, you know, it could have looked, you know, with the ravages. It could make my, you know, chin look like a vagina too. So you never know. So I really, you got to make fun of yourself sometimes, you know.
That's the best
And
time.
just those two albums. Actually, believe it or not, Disarm the Descent is actually the first Killswitch album I actually literally bought. You know, I was late to the game with Killswitch. It was the first one that I bought, and they were prepping it on hardcore at Hot Topic that week that I was there. I went there to go buy the new God Forbid and a couple other things that came out. And they had that album really promo. They had the deluxe edition for $9.99. I was like, all right, I'll buy it and see what it's all about. And ended up instantly being like repeat, you know, for the next year. You know, that album just literally just was like, it was everything I wanted in one album, you know. And, you know, on that album, it was a well return to Jesse. You know, it was heavy, it was aggressive, it was just, you know, a lot of people didn't know what was going to happen, you know, with Jesse coming back. And because it was coming off at around the same time as the First Times of Grace album, you know, they just got done releasing that. And then, you know, a lot of people are like, what? He's doing, you know, a lot of people were disappointed that Howard left. And, you know, they were like, oh, you know, Adam and Jesse, you know, that must have been really close because, you know, it was like two albums that came out around the same time, you know, the First Times of Grace and the, you know, Disarm the Descent. You know, that album just, to me, just, wow. You know, it helped me get through because I was a little angry person at that time. I wasn't a happy person. The Hell in Me, New Awakening, you know, it just really, that album spoke volumes to me at the time. And I was like, wow. And then just the gritty, raspy of his cleans on that album, you know, I was like, wow. Like Owen Wilson, like the wow factor on that album. And then whenever I bought this Alive or Just Breathing, I was like, wow. No wonder people were like ecstatic about, you know, Jesse's return on a lot of stuff, you know, because those two albums just are solid. And, you know, lyrically, both of them are just incredible pieces of work. And it shows you why, in a lot of people's list, why Killswitch Engage is the king of metalcore. You know, like a lot of people, you ask them, you know, like the Metallica, who's the Metallica metalcore? 99, I would say 99 out of 100 people would probably say Killswitch is number one. You know, I don't know. I could be wrong. That's just kind of what my opinion is. There, you know, it shows you, it just, at the time it came out, I was like, you know, I didn't know what it was. I was a little late to the party, but now I see, you know, that album is just, you know, Alive or Just Breathing, just, it really opened my eyes to a whole nother level of, you know, what I wanted to do in music, what I was wanting out of music, and lyrically what I was wanting to do with my own music, you know. Like I was saying, you know, with As Daylight Dies, you know, kind of but tenfold. Like everything I said about that album, Alive or Just Breathing, just wow. I couldn't get enough of it, and when I bought that album, I got it about 2-3 months after I got Disarmed. I was like, I'm glad he's back. This is incredible, just this is the Killswitch. I was like, it made me a Jesse fan. If I eventually I would love to have a conversation with Jesse. I'd like to kind of like play with his brain a little bit, because he's got stories to tell, and he makes his music so relatable, and what I like about his lyrics, I wish I could kind of write that way. I'm a little more personal, but like Jesse, he don't say the kind of person he's writing it to. You just kind of you can take it multiple with who you are. I'm an open book, like I said, I do write, and then I do say who it's about. You'll hear me on my lyrics, but you can go through so many layers of Jesse's lyrics, and like one minute he could be like pulling your heart, pulling on your tug of your heart, and next minute he could be like picking you back up, and be like, hey dude, here's a hug with my voice, it's gonna be okay, you're gonna get through it. And he does, he'll talk about in interviews, he suffers through a lot with depression. I'm sorry if I'm boring you, Jamie.
No, I had my eye was itchy.
Oh. Like it's just, if I feel lonely, or if I feel sad, or anything with Jesse is I would say it picks me back up where nothing else can, and that's why I love Killswitch. That's why they're like my second favorite band. They got me through a lot of trials, a lot of life, and it's just, I'm glad, and I can't wait to see what the future brings.
Yeah, and actually going back to your picks here is I was just thinking when you did mention Disarm the Descent, I was like, Disarm the Descent came out in 2013, and that it's not 2022 yet, but that album's almost been out for almost 10 years already. It does feel a little strange to think that album has been out for almost 10 years already. I still remember the day hearing the news that Jesse was coming back, and then hearing that first single and just being totally ramped up. I just was through the moon. And to think that's been almost 10 years, really, really strange to even say that it's been out for 10 years, but it has been almost. So that's really cool stuff.
Well, on that point, J-Dub, is that Howard was with the band for 9 years, and now Jesse's been back for 9 years. So it's interesting, because I agree. I feel like Disarm feels like it didn't come out very long ago.
Yeah, and I know you had Disarm the Descent there, and I did also want to say that I had Incarnate just above Disarm the Descent. I could flip flop, next week I could just easily flip flop that, but I probably would say Disarm the Descent is heavier. Like they came back, there was some total death metal and melodic death metal influences going on, so it is probably slightly overall a bit heavier than Incarnate. I probably just chose Incarnate. Again, Incarnate is super heavy, but probably Incarnate, they probably just were blending things very well. Jesse probably was a little more comfortable since he had done his return and he was firmly the front man again. The band was not going to fire him, so he probably was a little more comfortable doing some more melodic things and getting his emotions out, so to speak, on Incarnate. But Incarnate was just all a great package overall. So was Disarm the Descent. So I was just going to touch on that I probably think Disarm the Descent is a tad bit heavier, but I chose Incarnate just being slightly above. Maybe they're just putting it all together just slightly better. But Disarm the Descent is super heavy stuff here. And we'll go ahead with Matt's last pick. No.
Yep, this would be my number one pick. I'm feeling good about the show because given how much Killswitch obviously means to Clint, he got 2 number 1 picks. I think that's super appropriate, and he leads out the reason for my number 1. So my last pick was Disarm the Descent. And the reason that I was so excited for Disarm the Descent is because how good the album that is my number 1 pick is, which is Alive or Just Breathing. I think Alive or Just Breathing is one of the best heavy metal albums of all time. I think it's a clear number 1 for Killswitch. We all had it at number 1. And it's just a ferocious album. I think My Last Serenade might be one of my very favorite metal songs. Could be in my top 10. Probably listened to it hundreds of times. It's one of the first songs I had my daughter listen to when she could understand music. And Jesse's one of the reasons I feel good having a mohawk in my 40s. It's just a ferocious, awesome album. And it blows my mind that Alive or Just Breathing came out in 2002. Because I think if it came out tomorrow, it would still be futuristic. It's still relevant. It's still heavy. And as soon as we're done here, I'll probably put My Last Serenade on.
On that note, I just forgot to mention how, since it was my 2 favorite albums, I forgot to say, how much influence musically, Alive or Just Breathing has done for like the whole music community. How much that album has really, done for people. If that album didn't come out, at the time it came out, no telling what direction music would have been. But that album definitely has influenced a lot of music nowadays.
Yeah, I don't want to touch too much because obviously I'm gonna have to say my little bit on the last pick here, and it's no surprise that that'd be my last pick as well. But that is kind of just going along with what you guys have said. It's just a super dynamic album here, like super dynamic. It totally puts you in a different space in terms of the raw intensity that is coming out of Jesse's vocals here, when he's just doing complete time shifts between screaming and melodic. Again, a complete master at that. He totally changed the game. I know hardcore bands were doing that before, and even I probably will just touch on it now. Is Pantera was doing things like Phil started doing some of those stuff where going back to Cowboys from Hell and his next album, he would be doing a lot of singing and more aggressive vocals. But I definitely feel like after Pantera made their mark and ended their career in 2000, I believe, Reinventing the Steel was 2000. As soon as that cut off and metal was in kind of a weird phase, new metal was big, and then people were into new metal, and then new metal was kind of dying off, and it was a very weird. But no, it wasn't a weird moment. It was just like in terms of a lot of people were thinking, well, what's next? New metal. People weren't as interested as new metal because all the second and third wave new metal bands came out and kind of watered down that whole genre. And at that point, it happens to every genre. Once a genre gets super watered down, people are looking for the next thing. And Killswitch Engage was that next thing with My Last Serenade. That was their first single that brought them to the party, so to speak, and that was an absolute game changer. And yeah, no, Terry, you can definitely chime in, and then obviously make your pick, seeing as how we all know what.
Before I give my last pick, real quick, nobody touched on this, and it's just fresh in my brain. So I wanted to mention honorable, I guess it's not a Killswitch mention, but it's a side project mention. Scion. I don't know if any of you guys have listened to Scion yet, the Jared Dines Howard project. It's amazing, and if you haven't listened to it, you guys really need to go listen to it after this. So number one, same as everybody else, it's Alive or Just Breathing. It came out when I was 12. Not to date myself too much, but and I owned this album when it came out, and it was I was a Killswitch fan with Jesse, and I just got into him, and it was like as soon as I got into him, it was like, oh, they got a new singer now, and but yeah, this song, nobody touched on the very first opening track, Number Days. Number Days, just right off the rip, just blows your face off. Fixation on the Darkness is like one of the, like, I can't tell you how many times I listened to that song when that album came out. The Element of One, amazing song. God, that album front to back, I could just listen to probably on repeat every day.
Absolutely, yeah, great song picks there. Great song picks as well that you were making there. So I pretty well wrote down those songs that I'd want to touch on, and yeah, it's obviously going to be no surprise that Alive or Just Breathing is my favorite. Again, just kind of touching back to kind of the history of where metal was at the time. I kind of view it as Phil Anselmo was that super dynamic singer kind of in the mid '90s where he was comfortable doing singing and aggressive styles, and then new metal came along. That was a big wave for 5-10 years. 94 from 2002 sort of thing. New metal hit its stride, and then Limp Bizkit kind of put out their flopper fourth album there, and people were just not interested. It kind of signaled a death to new metal, even though I like that album in particular, but that'll be another episode. But just kind of the history there is, new metal kind of did drop off, and I know my new metal was my beloved little genre that I was in love with, and it was clear that it was over, and I don't know, it just kind of out of nowhere, Killswitch Engage releases My Last Serenade, and it was a complete game changer. It was almost like exactly what I had been looking for years. And then, oh my God, this is like exactly what I was looking for. Like, just the whole album in general is just super dynamic. Everything about it, the time shifts, the time changes, the vocal changes, just how intense everything is, just super intense and very personable, like the lyrics, just super in your face, aggressive stuff. And it was totally up my alley in terms of Pantera had kind of a fizzle, or it was kind of apparent that Pantera was done and weren't going to be making any albums. And I was super sad about that. And I was just looking for what else can I get my hands into that's going to be, intense and dynamic. And here comes Killswitch Engage with My Last Serenade. Unreal. I know I heard it very early on, almost like, not in their demo phase, but like I heard it very early on. So I was very attuned to this Killswitch very early on, to a point where when I heard it, I made all my friends, I was still in high school then, I made all my friends listen to it. I made them. I was like, you guys have to hear this. And it's yeah, I don't even know. I forgot what I was going to say, but it's so dynamic that I know it's undeniable. That song is so undeniable that I made all my friends who liked metal at the time, I made them listen to it, and immediately when the album I think was pretty well out at that point, just fresh new release, and all my friends bought it just based off that, hearing that one song that everyone became a fan off that. So some other tracks I did have other than the huge My Last Serenade that I wrote down. at this point I could have probably wrote down every song. So rather than doing that, I'll try to skim through some tracks and some notes I did make on some specifics. Again, Numbered Days, the opening track. Terry, you did touch on that. Numbered Days, again, right from the get-go, this is like, hello, Killswitch Engage has arrived to the party. You know, right away with me, I know me personally, it just right away, the vibe and the tone of Numbered Days, the opening song, it just puts you in a different zone. It just like, for me, even hearing it earlier today when I put it on to make the notes, it just flips a zone in me where I just become super intense and fixated on just how intense it is. Obviously with all being metalheads here, or I'm a metalhead here. I gravitate to super intense stuff, and this was exactly up my alley. Right from the get-go, super intense, hardcore thrashing going on here. Really great stuff. And then leads into Self-Revolution. That track is just super dynamic. On Self-Revolution, within the first minute, you hear every style of metal. You hear, basically every style of metal, right? I couldn't even touch on every style of heavy metal, but within that first minute of Self-Revolution, you hear every style of metal, and it's unreal. It's super dynamic. And then obviously Fixation on the Darkness, that longer 5-minute thing. It starts off, this big open riffs, melodic kind of happy tone chorus, and then back to the brutal stuff. These guys are just masters at doing that. And then My Last Serenade, I already touched on that. Life to Lifeless, it's just unreal. So much emotion in Life to Lifeless. Just so much emotion going on there. The dynamics are unreal, super intense. Again, it's just one of those things where you hear it and it just flips a zone in you, where it's just like if someone looked at you while you're playing these songs, you'd like mean mug them, like that's how intense you get. And Just Barely Breathing, super dark opening. Oh, that's the longer track. Sorry, I got my tracks mixed up. That's the longer track there, where it's the 5-6 minute, where super dark opening, and then it just explodes into this huge track, right? Unreal vocals and riffs on that track, Just Barely Breathing. And then actually we get to the backer half of the album here, To the Sons of Man. That's a 2-minute like a shorter 2-minute song track. Super headbanger right there. That's definitely inspired by some death metal, melodic death influences there. He's screaming all over that track. That definitely could be your quintessential headbanger tune. And then Temple from the Within. The screaming on that is just so dynamic, catchy but brutal. Like, it's a catchy song but brutal. Again, these guys are just masters at doing that. And Vid Infra, just another heavy, fast thrasher. That I know Vid Infra did appear on their first self-titled 2000, so that's when they were definitely in that early metalcore thrashing, like metalcore thing going on there. Vid Infra, great track. And then again, I do have to touch on these. I believe it's the last song. Yeah, last song. I have this running theme where I just am totally blown away by their album closers. I know a lot of bands tend to have these throwaway tracks as their album closers, or a lot of album closers as their slower tune. Again, Killswitch Engage does not do that. They always save these heavy bangers for their album closers that always leave you with a good taste. And again, Rise Inside here, the last song, just a nice mid-tempo builder. Jesse has some beautiful singing here going on here in Rise Inside. Just some beautiful singing that's going on there, full of emotions. And I know that's probably something Clinton loves there, Rise Inside. He's just super emotional, beautiful singing going on there. So that kind of does it for Live or Just Breathing. And obviously this is going to be a complete staple in any metalhead's life, whether you like metalcore or not. There's no denying how dynamic this album is. I'm just gonna probably keep bringing up dynamic because that's what it is. I've never heard anything like it, and probably still even to this day, I've never heard anything like it. I put it on and it just puts you in a different zone. Unreal stuff.
That is very, very true. Everything you said, Jamie. The sad thing is, I'm surprised nobody's mentioned, the Empire Shall Fall. Nobody's mentioned it. Or Seamless.
Forgot about
No, I definitely wanted to. I wanted to actually have the albums here and show it, but I started my little solo series where I'm doing this artist spotlight series, and that was going to be one of those things where me personally, I was going to save all the Jesse projects for a future show where I would touch on all his projects that he has done. Times of Grace, Seamless, Empire Shall Fall, and then that hardcore new hardcore band.
The Weapon.
The Weapon. Yeah, you remember the name, The Weapon. So it's unfortunate that Weapon doesn't have a physical release. It would probably be one of those things where if they did have a physical release, it would make me listen to it more. But yeah, I know me personally, I was going to try to hold off on that because I do want to touch on all of his solo projects and do a complete Jesse artist spotlight where I touch on all these vocals. And I could also do an additional one with Howard. And actually, I want to go back to Terry's comment when he did bring back the Scion band. I think they've only released a couple singles or one single at this point, so it's not something I would have listened to it maybe once, and in hopes that okay, I'm going to listen to it more when the album does come out. But I know one thing I didn't want to touch on about that is you bring up the guitarist guy that he's working with there. What's his name again?
Jared Dines, yeah.
Jared Dines, right. So Howard and Dines, I believe they originally met off a show and tour that I saw. I'm not sure if Matt was there with me that night with the Avatar show.
Yep, I was there.
Oh, yeah, with the Trivium and Avatar show. So
yep.
It was one of those things where Trivium was on tour with Avatar, and there was a week where the Trivium singer, his name's just slipping my mind right now, but the Trivium singer had to go home and deal with some family things. And
it was Matt. That's Matt Heavey, and I think he was having a kid. I think they're literally like his wife was in labor.
Yeah, and so Matt Heffy had to fly home, and to keep the shows going, so they didn't have to cancel. He got the singer from Avatar and Howard Jones to fill in, and they also brought Jared Dines on guitar to fill in for Matt Heffy played guitar as well to fill in. And I think that's how that whole thing came about. Is Howard was performing with Jared Dines on these fill-in shows, and obviously backstage chatter. They got to know each other really well, and I think at that point Jared Dines says, "Hey, you're not in Killswitch anymore. You have some side projects, but maybe you have some time." And I think that's when they worked it all out and figured this whole project out. So that was cool. You did touch on that, and
it was super weird seeing Howard on stage without Killswitch engaged, with his new project. I mean, he's really physically distinctive, and he's big, wide, strong-looking guy, bald, and you're just like, wait a minute, you're in the wrong band, dude.
He's a super funny guy. I know in between the songs he'll give these funny, goofy stories. I've seen a few times, and he's always really keeping the lighthearted, lighthearted themes with these in between funny banter and chatter. So he's a really cool guy that way. So we definitely appreciate the fact that we get both bands or both projects or all these projects that came out of this Killswitch Engage era and Killswitch Engage band. All the side things that have happened is just really great for fans and hardcore fans who super like Killswitch Engage and want to follow all these little side things that are going on. And I definitely when Terry did bring up that Scion, I started to think, oh yeah, that's the reason they got that whole project going is because they did those fill-in shows for for the Trivium. So that's kind of a cool whole thing I wanted to tie in together there. And yeah, that was great. That I believe, yeah, Matt, you did say you were there that night, so that was cool,
Yep.
right? Yeah, that
Yeah, it
was
was awesome.
And well, again, this is not a Trivium show, but while we're going along with that, that was really cool for me because I had seen Trivium a few times, and at that point, hearing the news that he was going to fly home and we're going to get I didn't really know what kind of show we were going to get, so I was actually super intrigued and actually excited because I'd already seen Trivium, so I didn't really care too much the fact that Matt Heffy was going to be gone. I was more excited about the fact that we typically don't get to see these weird kind of one-off shows in Canada. And so it was just a really cool coincidence that it happened to be on the Canadian leg of the tour, and we were able to catch that. So that was really cool.
It's interesting that they didn't step out, that Trivium didn't just say, oh yeah, we're good. This will just be an Avatar night. And that Howard and the other musicians had the guts to just step in and play their songs that aren't their songs. Howard and the singer of Avatar,
Johannes.
Thank you, Johannes, and Dines.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, we were us two were probably very lucky to have seen these one-off shows. We hear of these one-off shows all the time, and it's like, oh, that'd be cool to see that. Oh, I actually did for that finally this one time. So that was cool. And if anyone else wants to chime in with their last little bits as we wrap up the show.
Yeah, I was going to say, we've talked about, Howard's new band, but what about, the Devil, and Light the Torch? We haven't talked anything really about them. If I remember correctly, I think they're the same band. They just changed the name, if I remember correctly. The Devil, and Light the Torch, or not like, or is it the same band or is it different?
Yeah, I think there was legal reasons, or some of the band members that was in Devil, they didn't continue on with Light the Torch, and they said we won't let you use that name, or whatever was the specifics. But yeah, these are great albums. I would love to touch on. I'm actually glad that we are touching on these. These are great albums. And actually, even specifically, I actually find these albums to be better than the albums that he did with Killswitch. I don't know if anyone else agrees or that, but I actually find these albums could be in somewhat better than the last two Howard albums, as Daylight Dies and the self-titled. Again, that's kind of here nor there, a whole different conversation, or maybe it is a conversation, but. But it is cool that you do bring that up. I probably would have forgotten to bring that up if people aren't aware of what Howard's been doing lately and keeping up to date with him. But yeah, he did these two Devil albums, and then it did just shift into a name change with Light the Torch.
And it is members of I think the guitar players are from All Shall Perish, if I remember correctly. That is why the music's so much heavier, on the Devil,
Awesome.
Terry, did you have anything to say? Looked like you were trying to say something there.
Oh no, the only thing I was gonna say was the only reason I brought up the Scion point is for any of the people that I know you said you've only heard the one single. I've heard two so far, so I definitely have to send you the other single after this. But for people that are missing the Howard era of Killswitch, I really recommend checking out Scion because it's there. It's really good stuff. Like that Jared Dines Howard combo is a good combo.
And maybe not to throw you on the spot, do you have any idea of when that thing is coming out?
Yeah. I honestly am kind of new to it. I just recently discovered it. I do think I heard the first single when it was first released, but I don't know like in-depth details. But it just seems like right now it's just singles being dropped. But no, I should look up the actual release date or see if there is a release date after.
Well, yeah, tailing into that is I don't even know if there is a specific release date for that. Obviously, COVID threw everything out of whack, so maybe they're just waiting to see, okay, when can we actually tour on the album? So maybe they're just waiting for a good time. Okay, we're going to book a tour. Okay, let's release the album around the tour. So maybe that's kind of all in the works at that point. And
it could even building it up or something. Who knows?
yeah, I'm not sure. And yeah, we've killed. I think you know, we're pretty much on a wrap up here. So if anyone does have any kind of last little bits. No? Yeah, we've kind of all said what we've had to say. And, you know, thanks everyone for watching. Watch, subscribe, mosh, and see you later.
Later, guys.